Donald Trump's historic criminal trial is coming to an end as both sides give their closing arguments today. I want to make sure you guys are updated on what's going on inside the courtroom. So CNN reports that Trump was fuming that prosecutors will get the final word to the jury. In recent days, Trump has zeroed in on a new issue, or at least new to him, that the final argument the jury hears will come from the prosecution's team, not his, according to those sources. The former president only realized in the last several days that the closing arguments will happen the opposite way the opening statements did, where his team presented after the prosecution had laid out its case first. Trump took this complaint public on Sunday by saying in all caps, "Why is the corrupt government allowed to make the final argument in the case against me? Why can't the defense go last?" he wrote on Truth Social. "Big advantage, very unfair, witch hunt, DJT." I just want to point out this is the norm in all criminal trials. According to the American Bar Association, closing arguments take place in the reverse order of the opening statements. So if the prosecution goes first during opening statements, they get to go last during closing statements. Either Donald Trump didn't know this, either his lawyers didn't tell him, or he just wants to act like he's being persecuted even further. Of course, Trump reads Wall Street Journal article to reporters ahead of closing arguments and hush money trial. He's been doing this every single day before court. I think it's funny that Trump likely has an aide whose sole job is to cherry pick newspaper articles and print them out for Donald Trump. In the courtroom today, we see Susie Wiles sitting beside lawyer Alina Habba, Boris Epshteyn, and Trump Organization attorney Alan Garten. From the aisle, Tiffany Trump, Laura Trump, Eric Trump, and Donald Trump Jr. are seated in that order in the row behind Trump. Tiffany's husband is sitting next to Donald Trump Jr., and two Secret Service agents fill out the first row. Donald Trump also took to social media to attack GOP Representative Bob Good, who actually attended his trial in support of him. Judge Merchan says he gave the attorneys jury instructions on Thursday and no errors were flagged over the weekends. It's estimated that the defense will take at least 2.5 hours and prosecutors will take up to 4.5 hours for closing arguments. So let's dig into the closing arguments. Trump attorney Todd Blanche begins his closing argument by thanking the jury for their service. "Every one of you have been on time," he says. "We see you paying close attention to the evidence all day, every day, and we really appreciate that." Blanche then says, "President Trump is innocent." Trump attorney Todd Blanche is arguing that Trump is innocent, recalling his argument from the start of the trial. "I started out by saying something that I'm going to repeat to you right now. It is as true right now as it was on April 22nd, and that is President Trump is innocent. He did not commit any crimes, and the district attorney has not met their burden of proof, period. The evidence is all in," Blanche says. Trump attorney Todd Blanche then slams the testimony of the prosecution's key witness, Michael Cohen, during closing arguments. "The evidence should leave you wanting more. You should want and expect more than the testimony of Michael Cohen," Blanche says. "You should demand more than the testimony of Keith Davidson, an attorney who really was just trying to extort money from President Trump in the lead up to the 2016 election. It's worth pointing out that all of the evidence provided by Michael Cohen was absolutely rock solid. He laid out a paper trail. He laid out the timing of the events perfectly. His evidence was rock solid, but obviously Todd Blanche can't concede that. Blanche argues the case is about documents, not an encounter with Stormy Daniels. The case is about documents. It's a paper case. The case is not about an encounter with Stormy Daniels 18 years ago. Well, good thing for the prosecution, they have the documents too. The Stormy Daniels testimony was just the cherry on top. Blanche then tells the jury, "You cannot convict Trump on the words of Michael Cohen," but that is a misrepresentation of what Michael Cohen provided. He provided a lot more than words. He provided texts. He provided emails. Again, he provided a paper trail of the payments being made to Michael Cohen. Trump attorney Todd Blanche says the jury is here to determine if Trump had anything to do with how payment to Michael Cohen were booked on his personal ledger for his personal account at Trump Tower. At the time, Trump was living in the White House and Cohen was serving as his personal attorney, Blanche says. "The invoices were all submitted by Michael Cohen," Blanche says. "You're going to hear me talk a lot about Michael Cohen today, and that should not surprise you. You cannot convict President Trump of any crime beyond a reasonable doubt on the words of Michael Cohen. As I said, it's more than just words." Defense attorney Todd Blanche then says Michael Cohen's testimony was lies. They were lies, pure and simple, Blanche said. Blanche tells the jury that in order to convict Trump, they would have to determine if there were false entries in the paperwork and that Trump had intent to defraud. The records were not false and there was no intent to defraud, Blanche added. Blanche then tells the jury Michael Cohen lied to you in an attempt to discredit Michael Cohen's testimony. Trump attorney Todd Blanche says the prosecution has suggested there was some conspiratorial agreement to reimburse Michael Cohen. He was working for free. That's what they said to you, Blanche said. Cohen lied to you, Blanche said, punctuating each word. Cohen lied to you. Trump's lawyer told the jury that Cohen lied when he said on direct examination that he did minimal work for Trump in 2017, but then acknowledged multiple assignments he worked on in 2017 during cross-examination, like the Summer Zervos lawsuit Cohen served as co-lead counsel. Trump's attorney Todd Blanche also alleges that Michael Cohen was lying when he said there was never a retainer agreement with Trump in 2017. Blanche points to the email former Trump Org CFO Alan Weisselberg sent to Cohen when he was leaving Trump Org, which stated, "Please prepare the agreement we discussed so we can pay you monthly. You didn't see a retainer agreement. There's no evidence that there was one ever put together," Blanche says. The fact that there was a verbal retainer agreement from Mr. Cohen and President Trump is consistent with the practices from another lawyer you heard from, Keith Davidson, Blanche says. Judge Juan Merchan sustained one objection from prosecutor Joshua Steinglass when Blanche suggested it didn't matter that there was no written retainer agreement. He, meaning Mr. Cohen, was President Trump's personal lawyer, period, Blanche says. Blanche asks if the retainer agreement makes sense or Cohen. Usually the simplest answer is the right one, Blanche says. There's a reason why, in life, usually the simplest answer is the right one, Trump attorney Todd Blanche says, arguing that that's the case here. The story Mr. Cohen told you on the witness stand is not true, he says of Michael Cohen's testimony. I'm not sure I find that argument quite convincing, though, because I could see the simplest answer being that Donald Trump just commits crimes. He has a history of skirting rules, skirting norms, and committing crimes. This goes back decades and decades, and this case follows that pattern to a T. Not to mention, does it make more sense for Donald Trump to be hiding this story for his presidential run or to protect his wife Melania, who hasn't even been to this trial one single time? In my opinion, the simplest answer is that Donald Trump did this with the intent of saving his presidential run. CNN reports that Trump has leaned back in his chair, turned slightly toward the jury and his attorney Todd Blanche while Blanche makes his presentation. Blanche then argues that Trump had nothing to do with checks that were approved by Eric Trump and Don Jr. Trump attorney Todd Blanche says the prosecution could have called Don Jr. and Eric Trump to testify if they thought they were a part of the alleged conspiracy to reimburse Michael Cohen. Blanche shows the jury the first two checks to Cohen that were signed by former Trump Org CFO Alan Weisselberg and Eric Trump. One check was signed by Weisselberg and Eric, the other by Weisselberg and Don Jr. Both of these checks were approved by Eric and Don Jr., and President Trump had nothing to do with them. There's no evidence he had anything to do with anything involving these checks, Blanche argues. The check stub description says retainer, which Blanche says is automatically generated from the system based on the voucher which was inputted by former Trump accountant Deborah Tarasoff, not Trump. But if you can remember from Michael Cohen's testimony a week or so back, he said that nothing happens at the Trump organization that Donald Trump is not aware of. He says that Donald Trump is actually a micromanager and would get angry if something happened and he didn't find out until after it happened. So none of this quite aligns with the idea that Donald Trump is a micromanager. If massive payments were being made behind his back and Donald Trump didn't know about it, then that just doesn't make sense whatsoever. Blanche slams Cohen's account of Trump Tower meeting. Trump attorney Todd Blanche is now turning to the meeting in Trump Tower and Michael Cohen's testimony that former Trump Org CFO Alan Weisselberg turned to him and told him that they were going to pay him over 12 months. Blanche argues there's nothing corroborating Cohen's testimony that he met with Weisselberg and Trump while Trump was president-elect, and that they went over the repayment plan. And finally, Trump didn't know what Cohen meant when he talked about financing, Blanche argues. Trump attorney Todd Blanche notes that Trump didn't know what Michael Cohen was talking about when he talked about financing on the call. President Trump clearly has no idea what he's talking about. This conversation, Mr. Cohen and President Trump are literally talking past each other about what's going on, Blanche argues. It is a bold move to argue that the defendant had no clue what financing meant or what was even going on. But if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, comment a blue heart, hit that subscribe button, and have a great rest of your day.